wonderful to see all of you. I want to welcome everyone. And I'd like to thank Tupta Norbeling and Mary, and I'm not sure, Anna, I think is the other host. Thank you so much for taking the time to support this. Thank you so much. And thank you for showing up for those of you interested in how to cultivate this type of practice. So let's take a moment to orient our mind in the best direction by setting a good motivation. And if you'd like, you can just find a comfortable posture. You could lightly close your eyes. Just allow your respiration to deepen. And I would say the beginning of setting up any sort of spiritual practice, especially meditation, a meditation practice, is you can always use your breath. So you're feeling a bit tense at some point. Some encounter doesn't go the way you would like. So before you need to respond or shut down or fold in on yourself or lash out, can you familiarize yourself with returning to your breath? And if need be, to deepen that respiration. And just notice right now the air as it goes in the nostrils, expansion of the lungs, perhaps shift of the abdomen, nourishing your body, oxygen coming in. And then as you release, exhaling, let the tension go as much as you can. Let the shoulds go. Let the expectations go. An amazing resource, the breath. Sometimes you may notice you're in pain, mental or physical. Something is very uncomfortable. We can use the breath with basic mindfulness. I breathe in, I'm uncomfortable. I breathe out, I'm uncomfortable. So unfortunately, life on this planet, life in samsara, Sanskrit word to turn, to cycle. What we're cycling through is a suffering situation. That means sometimes things are going to be uncomfortable. So with my mindfulness and my breathing, I'm just allowing it to be. So sometimes there's no ability to fix anything. Sometimes there's nothing to fix. But instead of distracting myself, running away from every discomfort, there will always be another discomfort. So the more I can practice just sometimes being with it, it actually makes it more comfortable. But there are so many beings right now around the planet, ones you know, ones you don't know, who are really struggling with discomfort without any authentic path that can help them end their suffering, end the discomfort permanently, like the path we're on. So our biggest wish on this path, the biggest direction we want to orient ourselves in, is a path that leads us to a place where we have every ability to try to help all these beings, to try to lead them out of their suffering. In this tradition, the best way to do it is to become a fully enlightened being, a Buddha. Then you're omniscient, free of all fear, and have every perfect ability then to benefit all living beings. So if you resonate with that and would like to include that in your motivation, take a moment, feel free. And at the very least, putting your mind in the most positive direction for our time together today and all the events of the rest of your day. Please set that motivation. So please relax, and when you're ready, please open your eyes. So I would like to clarify about this particular Discovering Buddhism course, which is establishing a daily practice, which happens to come, I believe it's number 8 in the Discovering Buddhism courses, or please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going to double check that, but I'm pretty sure it's number 8. Yep. So of the Discovering Buddhism courses, as many of you know, and many of you have completed maybe a whole circuit or at least some of them, and Thupten Norbeling offers a wonderful program overall. It's fantastic. There's 13 modules of different topics you can go through, and then there's technically a 14th module that is kind of more in-depth spiritual practices that we do that have been recommended from Discovering Buddhism. Many of you are familiar with that course. So the reason this one comes as number 8, after you have the mind, meditation, the overview of the path, and some other topics as well, it comes a bit later as number 8. And the reason is, this is a style that I'm gonna show you that comes mainly from Lama Zopa Rinpoche's style of setting up a practice. So for those of you that just want your basic meditation practice like that, I'll try to bring in practical aspects of that. But this does include visualizations according to the Shakyamuni Buddha practice, which is visualizing the Buddha. It's a very nice practice to do. But there's also prayers and things like that. So again, Rinpoche really likes that we do the prayers because it lends support for the mind. And so I just wanted to explain, if you're thinking it's just a very basic meditation practice, that's not what this course is. So I thought that was better to describe, just so there's no expectations of I thought it would be this or that. Thank you, Mary, because the course materials are in the chat. She's posted the link. Thank you so much. And the nice thing is, you may want to, if you haven't already, please have a look at the link after the course. Look at the materials, look at the accompanying meditations. Let me know if this gets too loud because the kids are going to start playing, because the kids finish school here, and if it's loud, I'll shut the windows. I have a wonderful neighborhood with lovely kids. And one of them, it's their birthday today, so there may be some partying. Okay, so, but it's helpful to look at those materials And I'm going to go through the materials a little bit, and I will give you assigned readings from those materials. Again, it's up to you however far you want to participate, however deeply. The more readings you do, the more meditations you keep up with, obviously the more you will get out of it. Some people just want to show up once a week. That's fine. Take whatever you can from it. But I will recommend, like, if you want, look at this reading this week, look at these page numbers for this. We talk about morning practices, how to set up your meditation space, why we're doing these practices. And then we get into certain prayers like the 7-limb prayer. What is it about mandala offerings? What meditations do we do in what order according to analytical meditation on the Lam Rim? So how to meditate on the Lam Rim. And a lot of people ask me that normally. So if that's the case, you want to know how to do it, and you may want to set up, you know, a short retreat, like a weekend retreat or a day-long retreat. This is the course for you. Absolutely. This will help you, you know, think. And then what do we do in between sessions? How do we protect our minds? And what is it about vows and things like that? So we're going to talk about that, and I will make time for questions and answers like that. Now, I believe, please correct me if I'm wrong, we have 6 2-hour sessions. Is that correct?
Hello, Venerable. Yes, I believe it's six 2-hour sessions ending on the 21st of July.
Thank you. Wonderful. Okay, so that's great because that gives us enough time. All righty. Wait, I just want to find my, where did I put my thing? Here we go. And I'm just curious right now, as we start, just so I'm going to take some notes as well, just to make sure I cover. Can you just let me know, any of you, please feel free. What are you hoping to get out of this course? Because I like to direct things a little more specifically to who's here. What are you, like, you're showing up now, what are you like, I'm really hoping to hear this after 6 weeks, or I want to know more about this? Anything anybody would like to check in about?
Venerable, I think that you nailed it with your introductory speech about what the class was, the deepening of the practice and the meditation on the Lam Rim. That's why I was here.
Okay, wonderful.
And I'm working with Venerable Robina to help me combine my past practices with this course that you're offering now.
Great, wonderful, fantastic.
Thank
Leah,
you.
You had your hand up too. What are you thinking? What are you like wanting to get out of this course?
So I do have a daily practice, and I'm kind of a little all over the place. I feel that way because I continue to study, and then I want to add stuff. So I guess that's what I'm hoping is to maybe narrow it down a little bit. And then secondly, so now since COVID-19, my practice is pretty long because I've added all this stuff, and it's good. I'm happy, but I'm starting to get busier now that things are opening up, and I don't know what's my essential piece, what the essential pieces should be. And then lastly, a lot of teachers, I think I've heard them correctly. Sorry, that's my dog. A lot of teachers have said, you know, if you feel connected to a certain topic, you know, or connected to some prayers or mantras, you know, take them on. And I feel that way too. So, so just those 3 things. Thank you so much.
Sure. Now, when you say take on the prayers, what do you mean by that?
So I'm not sure.
In your practice?
Yeah. I don't know, different things I've read. I can't remember it exactly, that said, if you feel inclined or drawn to a particular prayer, that you should maybe include that in your practice. Yeah, like you said.
Sure,
And maybe
that would make sense. Yeah, of course. Yeah, that you can just do normally. Yeah, if you like a certain prayer, but we will talk more about that. Great, wonderful, fantastic. Thank you. Jenny, can you unmute?
Hello, Venerable. Thank
Hello.
you. Hello. Nice to see you again.
You as well.
I have lots of practices from Lama Zopa that I'm supposed to do a lot, a lot of purification practice and basic Lamrim, going through the different capable beings. I also need to incorporate some Guru Yoga into my daily practice. So I have, you know, a lot of confession prostrations. I have a problem with prostrations. I'm nearly 64. I have arthritis. I also have a dizziness problem, and I'm finding doing the prostrations, even the short prostrations, are really throwing me out with the dizziness. So I've been doing them in the seated position with the mudra. I'm wondering if that is acceptable, and you know, really trying to repeat the Buddha's, the confession Buddha's names, Vajrasattva as well, incorporating that into the practice. But as I say, I need to set up something where I can put some Guru Yoga into that as well. I've been doing some, I've been using I can't remember her name, Karen's book, The Preliminary Practices for the Shakyamuni Buddha, and doing that before I do the confession Buddhas, with the visualization, the 7 limb, you know, immeasurables, mandala, and then the, you know, the light, and sending the light out to all beings and all lands. So I've been doing that, but I'm not sure if I'm really going at this the right way, and if I should do.
Yep. So we're going to talk about all that. We're going to orient all this.
Okay.
Yeah, great.
Okay. So is it okay with the prostrations, with the to do the mudra in the seated
So
position?
you got a lifetime practice from Rinpoche, it sounds like. Is that correct?
Yes, I have several lifetimes, I
Got
think.
your pages. Okay. So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about this near the end, about those of you that really want your life's practice, if you feel connected to Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So we can talk about that separate if you want to another time, rather than taking up time from the class.
Sure.
Because
Okay.
basically it's fantastic you got the practice. Now you know exactly what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And with prostrations, if Rinpoche gave you prostrations or a number of those to do, for most of us, and we will talk about this a little bit in the class, it's fantastic to recite the names of those Buddhas every day if you can, or as much as possible. The recitation is super powerful for your mind, but these are a lot of prayers, and you're going to find, some of you are going to find, I'm not really into prayers. I don't know what this is about. I want to sit. Okay, so I'm going to explain how you balance things, of how I also arrived at my practice based on having a Lama that likes a lot of prayers and the significance of the prayers, why they're valuable. We're going to talk about that. So if you're dizzy and you have health issues with your body, try to at least put your hands like this minimum. I know some people that sit in wheelchairs like this. However, at least if you can make a half prostration, and then if you can extend and try to make a full prostration, because Rinpoche, I know people that were severely impaired, and it was through the practice of prostrations that they healed their body. So you have to do what you feel comfortable doing. You don't do it to injure yourself. Okay.
Okay.
But again, there's
thank
this
you.
benefit. You got a highly realized being telling you exactly what to do. And all you do is you try your best, everybody. You try your best. Whatever advice I give you, which is from Lama Zopa Rinpoche, some of it from my own life experience, please check up on what I'm telling you. You have to apply it and try it in your own life and see some results. See, how do you feel about it? You've got to give things a few tries, a few weeks.
Mhm.
And what happens with American culture now is we won enlightenment 2 weeks ago, wrapped up in a nice silver little box. This isn't the path for you then. If that's what you want, please find another path.
Mm.
This is not this path. This is
Sure.
a path that takes effort. So it's exciting though, but it's going to take effort and that kind of showing up for the mind that's up and down every different day and
Yeah.
look at our distractions and trying to lessen those distractions. That's our path. The
Sure.
Guru Yoga that we'll be doing, that we'll be basing this in, is the Shakyamuni Buddha practice. So that's a Guru Yoga practice.
Okay.
That's one of the most basic Guru Yoga practices. And I'm going to talk about what is Guru Yoga, why is that important? Okay, thank you
Okay.
so much,
Thank
Jenny.
you so much. Thank you, Venerable.
And hang on, I just want to grab one book. Okay, great. Anyone else? Anyone else kind of like, I need to hear this, I need to hear that? We've probably covered most everything, I would say. Okay, all righty. So again, we have an understanding, most of us, okay, the purpose of meditation, the purpose of trying to build a consistent spiritual practice, as most of you have already come to, right, is we want to be peaceful, we want to be happy, we want to be relaxed, okay, and we can use it for healing, which in our tradition, we might do purification practices. And what those do is they wipe away negativities. We might do practices that help us accumulate conditions to continue to have a good practice and to continue to study more and understand some of the topics like that. And really, the real importance in Buddhism of the real purpose of meditation is to care for the mind, to train the mind. So keep that in mind with your practice. You know, unfortunately, Americans, and we're not all Americans here, we're not all from the States, but we have these unrealistic expectations that can never be met. People tell me they meditated for 2 weeks, they meditated for 2 months, and they still get angry. Like why we expect after 40 years of having certain behavioral patterns that we're supposed to undo that in 2 weeks or 2 months or even 2 years. So the first thing I would say to yourself, please, is let's start practicing patience with ourselves, because that's going to make your path juicier and so much more comfortable and also realistic and able for you to do it. Let's start practicing patience with ourselves. And if I may quote Lama Yeshe, one of the founders of the FPMT, is be gentle with yourself so you will be gentle with all others. That's where the practice starts. Now, it's not just about self. You know, it's all about me, taking care of myself. You never think about doing those practices without the broader motivation. We have to take care of ourselves in order to be on this path. We have to be mentally balanced. And the reason I'm doing it is so I can become enlightened to benefit all living beings, not just for me to be happy, but for me to become enlightened. And it's not just to benefit all living beings, it's to become enlightened to benefit all living beings. Because when you're enlightened, you're unlimited in how you can help. Okay. So another thing that we're trying to do with our practice is to cut the root of suffering, to cut that root of dissatisfaction. Okay. So again, and I'm not only striving for myself, but then I can help others with it. And we'll all notice to some degree, many of you have already noticed this, that you want to change certain people in your life. There's certain ideas and expectations you have of some people in your life, okay? But the biggest way to change them, because you can't really change them, is to be an example. So you change yourself, which means your mind and your behavior patterns. And you're at a family gathering, and you've never said a word to them about your Buddhist practice. You've never said a word to them about meditation. But suddenly they notice that something happens at the dinner and you're much less negatively reactive than you used to be. And then they're like, what? Huh, she seems pretty happy and satisfied. And, I heard she did some kind of meditation course at one point. I wonder what she's doing. That gets people's attention more than you saying, I'm a Buddhist and now I'm going to this temple and I'm doing this. And it's just be the change. And then people will start asking, because if you start foisting your interests on them, and I'm a Buddhist and I'm going here and this is what the Buddhists say, and they're not interested, okay, they're not really going to pay attention or listen. But when you start to live that change, that authentic change that is a change for the better, then people start asking you. And when they ask you, then they're interested and then they're listening. Okay. So I think we're pretty familiar with the relationship between body and mind. I think many of you have taken earlier Discovering Buddhism courses. And again, just as a quick refresher, the mind in Tibetan Buddhism is not physical. It's not the brain. Okay. And it exists on a gross level, a subtle level, and a most subtle level, as does our body. But the mind has a very unique way of attaching to our body and riding along through lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, also in in-between states, meaning in between lives. But what Tibetan Buddhism says, it's the imprints in the mind, in the consciousness, that dictate how that life will be. So what we very much want to do is make changes in the mind, make changes in our mind or consciousness. So we're going to try to get rid of and purify the negative tendencies or imprints through purification practices that take time. And we're going to enhance the positive qualities through accumulating something we call merit. And that's how we progress along the path. So a lot of our path right now is ordinary beings at our level. And I don't really know what level you're at. I don't know your mind. However, for most of us, we're in a process of purifying negativities and accumulating positive conditions or merit. And the way we do that is through a variety of practices. So I'm going to explain some of those practices and these prayers that are involved in our practice. So again, another byproduct of meditation, a positive byproduct, is we get temporary benefits from our meditation practice and our spiritual practice overall, okay, of helping us develop the ability to face difficulties as they arise, to face death when it's coming, whether it's a loved one or whether it's our own death. And we can face those issues with less confusion, less suffering, okay, where you've seen other people completely, what do I do? I can't believe this is happening to me. People blaming externally, people falling into anxiety and depression. So your spiritual practices sustains you to keep the calm, even when you're feeling anxiety. You're noticing, I'm really anxious right now. But you've got enough familiar tendencies to say, okay, let me just take a couple deep breaths. Let me kind of reframe the situation. And the deep breaths will help me gain a broader perspective. And that perspective helps to reduce the anxiety, to say, I'm in the midst of this. I know people changing jobs, moving households with an entire family, various things like this. I'm in the midst of a house clean out, maybe moving, many things like this. And at times it gets very anxious. And then I think, okay, wait a minute. I'm actually completely fine here. And I also have some friends right now with serious health issues. So when you step back, take a couple steps back, I see the broader expanse and I can think, I really don't have any problems right now. My problems are really minimal. And actually, they're not even problems. It's really fantastic opportunities. So, but what happens is anxiety takes over, depression comes, tells you something else. So this is where this is what we want from our practice, to sustain that more open-minded, peaceful, relaxed view. Okay, so as we know, we have different kinds of meditation. The main ones we are doing in this tradition are between a stabilizing meditation called Shine, also called, I'm going to use synonyms, placement meditation. Calm abiding meditation is more the literal definition of Shine in Tibetan, shamatha in Sanskrit, calm abiding. And that's what we think of as meditation, which means I'm placing my mind on an object, keeping it there unwaveringly. Okay, so we will do some practice with an image of Shakyamuni Buddha. We will do a practice with an image of Vajrasattva that helps us do purification. Okay. And we'll try to keep that focus in our mind. And you notice the mind will go off and you bring the mind back. The mind will go off, you bring the mind back. And the same when you're focusing on the breath to stabilize. That's one kind of meditation. Second kind of meditation we do is called analytical meditation. Analytical, which means we're analyzing something. We're analyzing something. So this is where we go into the topics of the philosophy. If you're someone who suffers from low self-esteem, anxiety, and depression, I would recommend you meditate the beginning of the Lam Rim, Precious Human Rebirth. So the first thing you'll want to do is explore the topics under Precious Human Rebirth. Okay? And something that I think it was, where'd she go? Is it Jenny or who was just asking me the question? Maybe Jenny, is this is something I'd recommend, extended Lam Rim outlines. This is from Annie Karen at Kopan. She's sweetest nun. She's been there for years. You can find this on the fpmt.org website at the shop. I think you can download it. But what this does as a component, as a help for this course, is it takes you through the Lam Rim. And it gives you kind of the pith of what you want to meditate on. So it's kind of like what we might call your cheat sheet, if you want. So if you come and you go, okay, perfect human rebirth. Now, what I also would recommend, because you're going to get deeper understanding. And in the beginning, when I started Dharma, we didn't have the Lam Rim outlines. So I had to go through Lam Rim books and read them. And I would make my own outlines. What am I going to meditate on? Precious human rebirth. Oh, well, there's 8 freedoms and 10 richnesses. That makes up a precious human rebirth. I learned them. So slowly you go through, and what you want to do, those 18 situations, some of them are related. You want to, when you get to Lam Rim meditation, which I'll show you where we put that in, is I want to stop and I'm going to take one of those situations. One of the freedoms? Well, I'm free from being an animal. As a human, I'm free from being an animal, okay? So we see that as an advantage. Now you might see your cat sleeping in the sun all day, lazy, doing nothing, not having to work, and people mistake and say, well, their pets are highly intelligent and they really have a better rebirth than we do. Please check the animal realm a little more thoroughly. Animals don't have control over their lives. They're subject to intense fear, hunger, thirst, confusion, laziness. And really, if you check, our pets are the very top of the pyramid of the animal realm. Most animals live in the insect realm or in the sea. And the animal realm is consumed with eating, killing other animals to eat, sleeping, going to the bathroom, and making more animals. That's the animal realm. When you really check, okay? So you want, and what you want to do in a 15 or 20 minute meditation minimal, you want to analyze being free of being the animal realm. So you want to pick an animal and walk around in their body in your meditation. Be that animal. Look out through their eyes. Okay, how many of you have cats or dogs? Right? Visualize eating their food. You're eating their food. I find it disgusting, cat food. Okay, it smells. Okay, they like it. I know it's a cat, but you're going to be that cat. That's what you get to eat every day. Even if it's the variety of the liver versus the salmon, it doesn't matter. It's pretty disgusting. Okay, So, but you really want to take yourself down to the bowl and look what cats are scared of. You drop a pot off the stove, they leap into the air. They don't know, oh, it's just the pot lid. This is the animal realm, that kind of level of ignorance, dullness. You have to walk around like that. So that's the analytical meditation. You place your mind, and then when you get to a moment where that intellectual understanding here drops into the heart level, and you have an aha moment and think, oh my gosh, I'm a human, I'm so fortunate. Then you want to take your stabilizing meditation, your shine, your concentration, and you want to apply it to that more experiential feeling you're having, to deepen it. Deepen, that's how we have insights and realizations. Then that experience will fade. And then you go back and analyze more quickly to get back to that moment. And that's how we combine analytical meditation with calm abiding or placement meditation. The ultimate placement meditation is to realize shine, which has 9 different levels until you attain calm abiding. The really only reason we want to have calm abiding is not only to actualize realizations of the Lam Rim, our overall philosophy, but basically to have a direct perception of emptiness. That's the real point, and that cuts the root of all of your suffering. You cannot get emptiness without shine, okay? But it also helps you with all the other Lam Rim realizations, like that. And then your compassion grows exponentially. Okay, thank you. Mary just posted the link to the Lam Rim extended outlines. Thank you so much. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so let me set you up right now. I want to talk a little bit about how do I get the practice started. I know some of you have a practice, but this might be a refresher for you and it might give you ideas. Okay, where am I going to do my practice? That's something you have to realistically think about. Some of you already have it set up in your house. Wonderful. Okay, you may want to make adjustments or not. You're set, it's great. You do not need any elaborate materials, elaborate altar, cushions, nothing. So don't make excuses of when I get the raise and have the money, then I'm going to buy the table. Okay, I started with a box, cardboard box turned upside down with a scarf on it. So the main thing is to get to the seat at this point. Then you can slowly, oh, you went to a yard sale, you found a better table, great. But don't be the waiting until getting the practice started because I don't have the right materials. It's you and your mind, like that. Okay. So so what you're going to want to do, if you haven't already, is you need to find a quiet space in your house, preferably where you can be alone in that room and close the door. It can be a closet, something that's not heavily trafficked, like that you're not walking over, that you can leave a cushion or leave a chair in one position because you build energy in that spot. And you'll feel it, and it becomes your safe place to go back to. You can use a chair to meditate, absolutely fine. The main part about your chair or your cushion is please make sure you're comfortable. Most important thing is it's inviting. So if you're kind of, every time you sit on that cushion, your legs go to sleep, you're not going to want to sit. And you're going to end up someplace else where you're not really building energy on the space. A lot of centers have what are called for meditation cushions, zafus. Zafus, they're round stuffed cushions. They're about this big, maybe bigger. Okay. When I started meditating and learning how to meditate, all the centers I went to, most of them had those kind of cushions. And I thought that's the kind of cushion that you need. So every time I sat on those cushions, within 10 minutes, my legs went to sleep. Okay. Every body is different. So you've got to find a cushion, high, low, round, square, that is going to work with your body. It's worth experimenting. It doesn't mean you need to go out and buy a lot of cushions. Look around your home and try different levels of things for the time being. I've folded clothes up just to see, should I try it with this corner? Just improvise like that until you decide this is what I need. I'm going to go out and find a cushion like that. You don't need to spend a lot of money on it. I happen to sit on the corner of a low square cushion and I just have the corner under my tailbone. You may want to experiment. That's one way that I've learned to sit without my legs going to sleep. But it's also perfectly fine for you to adjust your position. Absolutely fine. So feel free if you're sitting. And the other thing is when you're new to sitting, and people have this idea they should sit for 45 minutes to an hour, unwaveringly, not moving. It's not realistic for us unless you're used to it. So when I started sitting years ago, my body was a lot younger, and I couldn't sit for more than 10 minutes without my knees hurting or needing to shift. Due to familiarity of me seated cross-legged in a certain position over all these years, and my body much older, I now can sit for longer periods of time. The only reason is because my body's familiar. And I prefer to sit in that kind of fashion rather than in a chair, because for some reason I hold my body more erect, and over time I'm comfortable. And as you get older, feel free if you need to use other cushions to prop your legs up, or it's absolutely fine. So there's not one way it has to be like this. Everyone at that center uses this cushion. Some people use little meditation benches, you find what's going to work. That's important so that you will actually use that space. Do you want a little table in front of you? I happen to have a table. I like it because I put my books there. I found a little cheap table online. Doesn't have to be expensive. And then people may want to have an altar. Okay, and what I mean by that is, I said I used a box upside down with a scarf, but something where you might want to light a candle as a point of focus. You might want to have a little vase with flowers. In our tradition, we eventually set up an altar with something called water bowls. Water bowls represent various things related, a lot of them related to the 6 perfections, meaning a type of behavior that helps us generate bodhicitta, the enlightened attitude, and helps us get enlightened. That's up to you to learn how to traditionally set up your altar. There's a booklet from FPMT, how to set up the altar and the significance of everything like that. So that's a nice practice. That's something I do first thing in the morning. It's a nice little orientation for my mind. And water bowls, offering water bowls happens to be one of our 9 nundro in our tradition of Tibetan Buddhism. So nundro means preliminary practices. And all they are practices that help us sweep away negativities in our mind and accumulate the conditions we need to advance along the path. So we can talk about that at some point if you're interested. So some people will have light offerings, like electric lights you can use. They might have an image of their teacher, a statue of the Buddha, whatever you like. And traditionally, you might have a picture or a little stupa on your shrine. This is more traditional. And you might have a text, something like that. And people have different things. So that's really up to you how elaborate or how simple you want it to be. Now, here's one thing to keep in mind. If it's elaborate, you need to keep your altar clean. Clean altar is a clean mind. And some people set up a wonderful altar. They never dust it, never clean it. And, if you put fruit on the altar in a bowl to offer, make sure the fruit or the flowers are always fresh. So after 2 or 3 days, if you see they're looking a little funny, remove them from the altar or freshen up the water or put a new apple there or something like that. Okay, it makes sense. It's practical. Because the main way you want to relate to it, if you have a guest coming to your house for dinner, for a meal, to stay overnight, you're going to try to clean the space to get it ready for them. Through this practice, we invite the Buddhas to be with us through a visualization. So we'd like to kind of create that space for them. Okay. So what we have is something called the 6 preliminaries. 6 preliminaries. These are preparatory practices. These are separate from the nundro. I just mentioned the water bowls. Totally separate thing I'm talking about now. I'm just talking about traditional 6 preliminary practices that we try to practice and include in our practice to get our minds ready to meditate. Okay, these are what they are. And these are listed in the Lam Rim. Okay. It's also listed in, I believe it's in this book, the Lama Rim Outlines. Okay, so number one is we clean the room, sweep the floor, arrange the altars with symbols of enlightened body, speech, and mind. What does that mean? Okay, let's look at this. Again, this is just a way you can fine tune, okay? Cleaning the room and sweeping the floor. Does it mean you vacuum your floor every day before? It's up to you if it's dirty. I actually like the act of sweeping with a broom. For me, it's a little bit more meditative than a vacuum. It's up to you whether you have carpet or wood floors, whatever. But I do make sure that my table where my altar is cleaned every day. Just basically absolutely wiped around. And I want to make sure if I see any dirt, any lint, you know, I look at the statues, I kind of make sure that if a bug flew into one of the candles in the wax and it's messy, I take it away. So that's a nice thing to make sure the water bowls I have are look good, that they, if you have hard water and they get rims around the bowls, the top of the bowls with vinegar. So we did this at Milarepa basically once a month, is I would take trays, put vinegar, mix the vinegar and water, turn the bowls upside down, leave them there, and I would clean that water line off so that the bowls were really sparkling. So those are the kind of things you want to pay attention. The reason is a lot of people say, well, this is kind of a pain. Like, I want to meditate. Okay. What we have to start understanding is all these things have a significance for the mind. It all layers some positive energy into your practice. So if you're just trying to meditate and you sit down on a cushion over and over, unless you have high levels already of meditation and stabilization in the mind, you may not have much success getting off the ground, okay? Because these other things really have an added value that helps support the practice. Now, if we're arranging the altar with symbols of enlightened body, speech, and mind, okay, these are what you can use. Body is a statue of the Buddha, if you have any kind of Buddha, Tara, Buddha of compassion, but it doesn't matter what the Buddha is. It can be little. I have a little traveling one that Rinpoche gave to some of us, little Buddha this big. And Rinpoche gave to us and said, oh, you know, when you travel, then you can take this. It's really nice. So it doesn't matter what size. I'm making satsas. I have one 6-inch statue of the Buddha that some people use as an altarpiece like that. So again, that's up to you. You don't need to go out and buy some expensive Buddha statue. Absolutely not. You can always improvise. You can have a picture of the Buddha if you don't have, again, a picture of the Buddha is perfectly fine because that's a symbol in a sense of the enlightened body. Enlightened speech, you might have a text on your altar. A text on your altar. The book would be wrapped in a nice book cover. It can be a Tibetan text, it can be an English text, it doesn't matter. You can stand it up on a corner if you'd like. What I sometimes like to do is I have a dish with a kata on it, so a covering, some kind of cloth, and the book is wrapped up on in a book cover like that, if you want to do like that. And then you can have an image. Enlightened mind is an image of a stupa. So you can have a little stupa if you happen to have one, right? Or you can have a picture of a stupa. And so those would represent enlightened body, speech, and mind, like that. Okay, number 2, obtaining and arranging offerings. This is what I'm going to set up. I happen to like to set up water bowls every day. And you can have as many sets of those water bowls as you want. If you're doing a water bowl nundro, right, you can count those water bowls every day that you set up towards that, if you're doing 100,000 or some sort of level like that. Okay. You want to make sure that you got the offerings in a legal way, that you didn't steal the water bowls from someone. And you want to have them looking nice. You don't want, you know, tarnished silver bowls. Like, make sure they're cleaned and shined and not scratched at the bottom and with dirt in them and things like that. So whatever offerings you make, you want to, like, it's nice to use filtered water for your water bowls if you'd like. I put saffron in them. So it not only colors them gold, but saffron represents pure morality. So you can buy saffron online, you can boil it, make a concentration, and then I pour a little bit of that into my water bowl pitcher and and then fill up the bowls in a certain way. So it's good to learn how to do that if you like. You can put a bowl of fruit, make sure it's nice, flowers, light candles, have electric lights, incense, like that. Okay, so that's obtaining and arranging offerings to a place where it's inviting for you. You see it, it's not about show. It's not about, look how great my altar is, and you have a Buddhist friend come over and they spend the weekend, and that's when you have this really nice altar, but you're not really using it. And there is a famous ancient story some of you might be familiar with. There was a great yogi who was meditating ancient days, and his benefactor was coming, because a lot of people, monks and nuns, have benefactors, or if they're going to be on long retreat where they're not going to have any income and we're not really supposed to work anyway. So that way they'd have somebody support them, and it's, you know, highly meritorious for the person supporting them. The benefactor is going to come to visit the meditator, and they make this arrangement, and it's okay for him to visit. And the yogi decides to, he has a very simple altar, but he decides to make this really fancy altar to kind of show off, as if showing off his realizations to the benefactor. And then right before the benefactor comes, the yogi realizes this is just courting the 8 worldly dharmas, just about his reputation, and for the benefactor to say, wow, like what a great altar he has. He must be really highly realized. And so the yogi at the last minute takes some ashes from his fire where he's cooking and threw it on the altar, and just wanted to cut that thing. So again, this is not about impressing someone else. This is about you and your mind. And all of those things of how you set up the altar will have an effect. Okay. Let's look about, now we're going to sit. We're going to sit down in front as if there we are at our altar. Okay, now most of you are familiar with this. I'm just going to briefly review the 8-fold Varuchana posture, or 7-fold, some people say. There's 7 or 8, depending how you look at it. Most of you are familiar with this, okay? I call it the 7-point Varuchana posture, and Varuchana or Vairochana happens to be usually a white colored Buddha that represents our form, one of the Buddha families, and he represents our form, which is our body. So what's our position in meditation? This is the traditional meditation posture. Wait, I think the kids are getting a little loud. Let's see if that will cut the, I love the kids. Okay. And the kids on my, I live between 9 young children, school-age children. They're wonderful. But when you look like this, initially, I would think it would be a little alarming for the kids. But obviously, I've lived here for some years, and the kids have grown up with me now. Some of them, you know, they're like 7 to 9 years old. And it's so interesting how they see me and they run over to me now and hug me. And like, it's so sweet how, you know, especially when I'm newly shorn, and I always think, oh, they must think it's weird. And they're just used to, you know, we can adapt to anything, right? Okay, 7-point Varuchana posture. Most of you are familiar. Most important part is the extension of our spine, the back, as if your back is straight. And Rinpoche, again, I reiterate, because some of you've heard this, your sides are long. So you get the idea of the extension. Okay? And then you've got position of your legs, which if you're in a chair are straight down. Feet flat on the floor, or feel free to put a cushion under them if that helps your hips or helps the level that you're sitting. Or you're seated on a cushion on the floor. Or you could be in a wide chair that some people sit cross-legged like that. That's fine, as long as you're comfortable. And you could be in any cross-legged posture that you like for the legs. Full lotus, half lotus, Burmese fashion, where one leg is in front of the other. A fashion where we just cross our legs the way we've done when we were kids. Any of those is fine, as long as it supports your body and that you feel comfortable in it. The hands. Hands are face up, palm face up, right palm on the left, and the thumbs are pressed together, forming a small triangle right against the body at the navel, like this. Okay, so they're pressed together, and the reason they're pressed together, it's dynamic. This is for alertness. Okay, it's not in your lap and then the shoulders start slouching. Mind gets drowsy. I'm here with my meditation posture. You see the wings of the bird, method and wisdom. That's what these two arms sticking out represent. Method, the right side, wisdom, the left side. This is my skillful means method of bodhicitta, and my view, emptiness, like that. The reason the thumbs are pressed together is in the subtle energy system in your body. There's a subtle vein, they say, as part of that system that runs down the pad. Whoops. That runs down the pad of the thumb. So when you constrict that by pushing the thumbs together, they say it helps counter delusion and distraction in the mind. I have heard a Lama say it also opens the energy center at the heart chakra. So I don't mean heart organ. I mean that subtle energy system that has an energy center around the heart, more towards your spine. Okay, so actually the arms are pulled up, and some people feel their shoulders get a bit tweaked. So send your shoulder blades down your back so there's more extension. This is the position of the hands. Okay. Your head is slightly tipped forward. So again, if you're up here, a lot of distraction. If your head is tipped too forward, you get drowsy. It's a subdued posture, making the neck comfortable, not strained. The eyes can be lightly closed or slightly opened. And let's be practical. If you're very distracted, I would lightly close the eyes. If you're very tired, I would open them slightly and let a little bit of light in. Shoulders are relaxed, not up by your ears. The lips are lightly together. The teeth are slightly apart. And the tongue is curled to touch the upper palate in the mouth behind the front teeth. 7-point Varuchana posture. Some people talking 8, counting the breath as part of it. And from liberation in the palm of your hand, I'll quote, legs, hands, back make 3, brought to 4 by teeth, lips, and tongue. The head, eyes, shoulders, and breath are another 4. These are the 8 practices of Varuchana. So just take a moment right now, and I'd like you to just find some comfort in this position. And as you do that, bring your mind to your breath. Just a normal, natural breath. And imagine here I am in my practice. What you'd normally do at this point is set your motivation, but we've already done that. But just take a moment to reestablish that motivation in your mind right now. And here's another step you can now include if you like, okay? And don't get too worried. If you'd like right now, you can take notes of, okay, first I clean the place, I set up my offerings, I've now put the posture together. Relax yourself is a very important step. So when you focus the mind on the breath, you might use the inhalation to open up space where you notice you might be holding some tension. And use that exhalation to release the tension. It's a really important step is to relax. You can set a motivation either before or after relaxing. And another step that can help you relax more, especially along the subtle channels, is some sort of pranayama or breathing exercise. So I'm going to introduce here the 9-round breathing. So what I wanted to mention in your own practice, if you're not taking notes like that and you get mixed up of what comes first, what should I do, don't worry so much about that. Recall what you can. The main thing is to get started if you haven't already started. But I do find in certain orders it can be helpful. So with the 9-round breathing, and there are variations on this, I'm going to follow Lama Yeshe's, the way he used to lead. And we're going to start by closing off the right nostril. You're going to exhale deeply through the left. So we're starting with an exhalation. You're going to switch, closing off the left nostril. Inhale deeply through the right. As you do this, imagine you're lessening anger and hatred in your mind stream 3 times. The second round, we are closing off the left nostril. We're exhaling deeply through the right. Then you're going to switch and close off the right nostril, inhaling deeply through the left. With this, imagine you're lessening attachment and desire in your mind 3 times. The third round, exhaling through both nostrils, inhaling through both nostrils, and imagine lessening confusion and ignorance in your mind 3 times. This is a place where you're now technically beginning the more formal part of your practice. So these preliminaries, I can't stress the importance of them, because so many people I know run in from work, come home, or they finish their Zoom session, their online session, they want to meditate, they're not giving themselves any space of transition. They plunk themselves down on the chair or the cushion, the sofa, and they expect the meditation to just organically arise. It's not realistic. So it's like anything we do, we go into the kitchen and start preparing food that tells ourselves, oh, I'm going to eat a meal. So there's some preparation. Either you order online and you're waiting for it to come and you look at the menu online and you pick out. There's different things of waking up. When you wake up and then you go in the bathroom and there's kind of wake up activities. The same with meditation. So we need to give ourselves, orient the body in the proper way. Let me put out some offerings to acknowledge I'm going to invite the Buddhist to be here. Let me make sure I'm in the right position. Let me allow myself to relax as much as possible. Okay? And then one of the things we can do at this point is interject and include some motivating prayers if we like. So let me just see if I can. Okay, so this has the other. I'm looking for the basic 4-line Refuge Bodhichitta prayer. I forget if that's in our materials here. I don't seem to have it right, but I think you know the basic Refuge and Bodhichitta. Sorry, one of our hosts, do you have that 4-line prayer we can just reference for a moment? Sorry, I was going to share my screen and let's see if I can find it. I think I've got it here. Hang on one second. Here we go. Can I share my screen? Is that possible? Yes.
Yes,
Wonderful.
Venerable.
Thank you. Okay. Can you see that prayer?
Yes.
Super. Okay. So this prayer, and I'm just giving you an example. Okay. This is our basic Refuge and Bodhicitta prayer. So imagine there you are in your space now. You can recite this in English. You can chant it in Tibetan if you know the chant. You can do both. Okay. But all you want to do is, some people like some sort of prayer. Maybe this is traditional, but maybe you find another prayer that really moves you. Fantastic. Maybe it's short, maybe it's longer. This is a place where if you like, you could recite some sort of prayer. So let's just 3 times pretend there we are in our sitting space. With this prayer, I tend to put my hands in prostration mudra. It's up to you. I'm just giving suggestions. Okay.
Venerable.
And
Yes. I'm so sorry to interrupt. We can't actually see the wording on the prayer now. I think the page either needs to come down or further up.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. Let me try that again. Sometimes it moves.
Yes.
Okay, let me know if you can see it, because I was trying to make it bigger for you. Can you see it now?
Yes, Venerable.
Okay.
So sorry, no. The first line I can read is, these are the 8 practices.
Okay, can you see the refuge prayer now?
No, I can see your toolbar, the very, very top of the computer screen.
All right, well, we'll have to figure something else out. We're not going to do that then. Okay, so what you can do is you can do a prayer like that. I'm not sure why it's not coming up. Let me try one more time. No, it's not working. Okay. Can you see it now? No. All right. Never mind. That's okay. So what you can do is some sort of prayer like that. And let me just see where the, okay. Okay, and then the next thing that you're going to do, and let me just recite that prayer. Many of you know it. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. You don't want to just blah, blah with the prayers. You want to think about the prayers having presence in your mind with the prayer. So I know many people, they say to me, and I've done this myself, you're so used to reciting something and you maybe know it by heart and you sit down, you're in your practice, you're reciting something and your mind is a million miles away. And then I'll come back and I'll be like, well, I need to do that over. So again, do it over and do it with that I'm here now with this prayer. So this prayer contains the whole path and it's a really nice, useful prayer, just orienting my mind. You know, I want protection from the Buddhas from more suffering. I'm going to go to the three jewels, Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. That's the Supreme Assembly, because they have very special qualities like that. Oh, there we go. Thank you so much. And basically, the reason I'm doing this through the merits. So that's one for, that's not the actual prayer. That's one for when you're in a teaching. The third line is different. It should really say, by the merits I create by generosity and the other perfections, may I become a Buddha. Again, reorienting my motivation. Why? To benefit all living beings. Okay. And then in Tibetan, Sangye Chodren so ki chonam la janchu bardu dagni kyab suchi dagi jin sogi pedi atsonampi drola pencher sangye drupar shog sangye Chodren so ki chonam la janchu bardu dagni kyab suchi Dagi jin sogi pe son nam ki drola pencher sangye druparjo. So just a little orientation of that, okay? Okay, now the next thing you can do, suggesting, is we start our Guru Yoga practice. We start our Guru Yoga practice. Let me take a pause for a moment. I just want to check in with you and I want to ask, are there any questions so far? Okay, everybody okay? Great. We'll have some more time at the end as well for questions. The next thing we would want to do in this practice, Guru Yoga basically means I am going to visualize an aspect of the Buddha that I am going to see as inseparable from any particular, especially highly realized teacher that I have. I tend to say a little bit more highly realized beings, but you can have any teacher that you see inseparable from the Buddha. It's not that they are a Buddha necessarily because you see them that way, but it's very good for your mind. Westerners have a really hard time with this. You say the word guru and everybody leaves the room. It's scary for us. Guru happens to simply be a Sanskrit term for spiritual teacher, or on another level, virtuous friend. Virtuous friend. We have a lot of friends. When we get into trouble, we ask our friends for advice. They offer advice out of their love and caring for us. How many of your friends are enlightened? Meaning the advice they give us is pure, authentic, and they capital K know the best thing to advise us. I don't think we have many friends like that. The guru is that kind of friend, especially if they have high realizations. If you've checked them out thoroughly, don't just accept somebody because everybody in the room's bowing down. You have to make sure it works for you. It's a really hard one for Westerners. Okay. I didn't need a guru when I got into this. I'm an independent person. I dictate my own life. When I met Rinpoche, you know, I saw people bowing down. I didn't want any of that stuff. It didn't make sense to me. I didn't want to ask somebody what I should be doing with my life. I had enough knowledge to understand, is what I felt. But over the years, slowly, from seeking small advice from Rinpoche Don't ask the teacher unless you're willing to follow the advice. Don't waste their time, okay? But seeking small advice I could follow, even before I was a Buddhist, following the advice and checking my mind and liking the result. Then I asked another piece of small advice, another piece of small advice, another small thing, a little bit bigger, took refuge. Slowly over time till it evolved for me after thoroughly checking Rinpoche out as much as I could, in classes, with students, at centers, on a trip, on a pilgrimage, like really watching this being that I was so intrigued by and had such a good feeling around. Like that, slowly came to really develop faith in Rinpoche and saw Rinpoche at work and also noticed the results of following his advice, how it worked in my mind. And I started to see big transformation for the better. That deepened my faith. Okay. So again, this isn't something you leap off the thing. Everybody's following this person. I guess I should. That's the American way. Don't do that. You investigate thoroughly. And His Holiness the Dalai Lama says that. Be a spy on your guru. His Holiness even says to take 6 years before you accept that person as your guru. And I don't just mean teacher, small t. We have a lot of teachers, absolutely. We have some really fantastic teachers. But guru is different. It's really a person that is taking some responsibility for your mind. You have the ultimate responsibility for your mind, but they have an ability to guide you to freedom. And if it's an authentic guru, they're going to do it as quickly as possible, especially if they have a really devoted disciple, then they can steer you more intently. It's very powerful, that relationship. In Tibetan, Lama is teacher, Lama in Tibetan, which really means one who is heavy. And what it means, it's not about weight, one who is heavy with realizations. That's the real spiritual friend, like that. So the Guru Yoga practice is key about setting it up with, and we're going to set it up with Shakyamuni Buddha. That's the crux of this practice, Shakyamuni Buddha. So I want to show you, okay, this is the practice booklet. But FPMT is not selling materials anymore, but I think you can download this onto an online way that you can use it, okay? And this is basically an everyday practice, and it says a daily meditation on Shakyamuni Buddha, okay? Now we have that in the materials for this course. We have this practice. So I'm going to use this practice as a guide. And again, I'm showing you, I'm just suggesting. You may say, I don't really want to do that practice. That's fine. I am just introducing that through this course, that this is a practice we're going to do repeatedly in the sessions of visualizing the Buddha. So you get the visualization practice, which involves your shine or concentration, focusing on that Buddha and trying to bring those details more clearly into focus, seeing them as inseparable from any of your teachers or one particular teacher perhaps. And then we get to do practices with this Buddha in mind that helps us accumulate positive energy for our practice and helps us purify negativities. It's a basic Guru Yoga practice. Okay. When you get into higher level practices of Tantra, you can even deepen that Guru Yoga practice and you can do more elaborate Guru Yoga practices. Okay. So this one is the simplest, the Shakyamuni Buddha, one of the simpler ones. Okay. The next level of Guru Yoga practice would be something called Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga. Lama Tsongkhapa, sometimes called Ganden Lagema. Ganden Lagema. Again, FPMT has another practice booklet, something I do every day. And all you're doing is you're using Lama Tsongkhapa, who is our patron saint, born, 1347 to 1419 is when he lived. He's the founder of our tradition, the founder of Ganden Monastery that now still exists outside of Lhasa and has been reestablished in South India. Lama Tsongkhapa would be the focal point instead of Shakyamuni Buddha, but at his heart, you can visualize Shakyamuni Buddha. At Shakyamuni Buddha's heart, your guru. So you have these 3 levels of beings more powerful for your mind, like that. If you want a more elaborate Guru Yoga practice, is then a practice called Lama Chopa or Guru Puja that most of you have heard of. We tend to do that practice sometimes once or twice a month on Tsog days, T-S-O-G. Those are special days on the 10th and 25th of the Tibetan calendar that is more related to tantric practice, okay? Now here's the difference of these practices. This is the shortest. Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, and they all contain this one very special prayer that we're going to talk about called the 7 limb prayer. 7 limb prayer, 7 lines, okay? In its simplest form, it's just 7 lines, okay? In the Lama Tsongkhapa Guru Yoga, each of the lines is actually 1 stanza. In the Lama Chopa, there's several stanzas for each line. So it's just in a more elaborate 7 limb prayer like that. So these are really special practices. And what they do is it's all contained in a practice. Like this, see how thin this book is? It's pretty simple. And the more familiar you get with some of the prayers, you can do them more quickly. You don't have to do everything really, really slowly. I have so much practice every day of commitments that some of these prayers I know really well. As long as my mind is present, I can recite them more quickly. Like that. When you have more time, I might do something more slowly. The main part is also visualization and concentration. Like that. And feeling that energy, feeling the Buddha's there, making those offerings in your mind, things like that. Okay. So what they do is they set up these practices, these Guru Yoga practices, in a very simple way for us that helps us have all the components we need to advance along the path to enlightenment. So the 7 limb prayer contains some very significant things that help us accumulate merit and purify negativities. And I'm going to explain those in detail like that. So they're making it as easy as possible. Again, if you like this particular path and want to do these practices or include some of them in your practices. Okay. Okay, so what we're going to do right now is I'm going to go back to a daily meditation practice. I'd like to share my page. I don't know if you'll see it, but basically, let me try this. Let me see if I can do this because this is the practice I want to do. Let me know if this is going to work. Okay. Whoops. Can you see where it says Refuge Meditation from a daily meditation practice? Is that on your screen? Okay, let me know if you can see it now. Can you see the 2 pages there now?
2 pages, yes. And Refuge Meditation from
Great.
a day is yes, that's in the
Okay,
middle
now
of the
let me
screen.
let me know if you can see it now. Bigger?
We can see the middle of 1 page, Venerable.
Perfect. Okay, we're there. Okay, let
That's
me
it.
know. Just let me know, and thank you so much, my dear. Let me know if you can't see it at any time, if you've lost it, okay?
Okay, thank you, Venerable.
Okay, now here we go. This is as if we're doing our practice. This is, and again, I'm suggesting this is one way of practicing, okay? You've now sat down, we've done our preliminaries, we're ready to go, and I'm only explaining this slowly. So don't feel like I don't have the time to do this. We've already spent over an hour. How am I going to fit this in? The more you do it, the more streamlined it becomes. Now, I'm not saying streamlined so that you race through something and squeeze it into your busy life. And I totally heard what you said. I think it was Leah, that now you're getting busier, or Leah, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, as COVID is changing in the United States and we're starting to get outside and we're busier, and I am as well, right? Then I have to kind of condense some of the practices. Perfectly fine. The more you do it, the quicker it will become, but you can still have presence of mind. And there are days, for instance, there's people I recommend through this practice book. You don't have time, then maybe you skip that prayer today. The next day, you're off from work, you have more time, I'm going to do that practice longer. When I get some retreat time and I really eke out a weekend and I'm going to do retreat, then I have much more time to practice. That's how we have to go along in life. And the more you can build more practice into your life by lessening some distractions, because we actually do have the time, but we're also just used to the screen time on our devices the time I spend looking at the news, the time I spend streaming videos, the time I waste time looking at that game or this thing or that video. We really have the time there. You just have to get a little bit more skillful with the schedule of your life if you really want to do this and find it worthwhile. So what I'd like you to do right now is imagine seated around you, okay, are living beings, and I would start with your family to your side, seated next to you, even if they've passed away. Imagine behind you friends and colleagues that you like forming a semicircle behind you, kind of supporting you. And if you like, you could place any people that are challenging in the space in front of you, facing you. But all around the rest of the space, imagine living beings and imagine the way they suffer. Think of all the different sufferings. And I'd like you to imagine over top, in front of you, so over top the challenging people that are facing you, is Shakyamuni Buddha. Radiant golden being about 6 inches in height. And again, if you need to make him bigger, perfectly fine. I'm just giving suggestions. He is in the nature of light. So rather than visualizing something solid, in the nature of light, radiant golden being seated on a beautiful, magnificent jeweled throne. The throne is supported at each corner with 2 snow lions that represent the Buddha's fearlessness. As best as you can imagine as if he's there. If you have trouble with that, visualize a radiant golden light that represents the omniscient mind, the all-knowing consciousness. The Buddha is draped in beautiful saffron robes. He has a radiant, peaceful smile on his face. His hair is tied up in a blue-black top knot, on top of which is an ushnisha, a crown protrusion that's a sign of enlightenment. He's seated in the full Vajra position.
Sorry, I missed that.
The
Could you
Enlightenment.
say it again, please?
Oh, goodness. The Enlightenment position. His left hand is in his lap holding a nectar bowl filled with nectar, begging bowl filled with nectar. His right hand is by his right knee with the middle finger touching the moon cushion on which he sits, which is the Enlightenment Mudra, the mudra in which he got enlightened. And I want you to have a look at what foundation the Buddha is seated on. So on top of the jeweled throne, the first level on top is an open multicolored lotus. A lotus rises out of the swamp unstained by the muck of the swamp. And this represents renunciation. Renunciation is giving something up. And the essence of this in our tradition is giving up whatever disturbs your mind. What we really want to give up is suffering and delusion and any karma that causes that. On top of this lotus is a moon cushion lying flat like a moon disk that represents relative bodhicitta, the skillful means of compassion we need to get enlightened. That's what his middle finger is touching by his right knee, that moon cushion. On top of this moon cushion is a radiant sun disk lying flat that represents ultimate bodhicitta or emptiness. These 3 symbols, the lotus, the moon, and the sun, represent renunciation, bodhicitta, and emptiness, also called the three principles of the path, or the three principal aspects of the path. This is the foundation upon which the Buddha sits. His eyes are lightly closed to show he's in meditative absorption. They're slightly opened to show he sees all the living beings and is ready to serve. His lips are red to show that he teaches out of compassion. And everything about him is completely uplifting for the mind. As best as you can, visualize as if the Buddha is there, in the space in front of you, slightly higher than the level of your forehead. And you've got all these living beings around you who really need help and are really suffering. If you have more time in your practice that's contained in your materials for this course, you could read where it says think, that's on the page I'm sharing. And if you want, you could read out loud. For instance, because of my good fortune, I've met the most sublime teaching, the Buddha Dharma. My death could happen even today. So in a sense, you're refreshing your mind, right? That I want to use this time as skillfully, as meaningfully as possible. I want to get to my practice. And so slowly this just goes through a kind of refuge motivation. So let me go on page 95, the next page. So I'm realizing all the suffering that beings are going through. Get back to, here we go. But realizing to just liberate myself, as it says in the text on the top of this next page, it's not at all sufficient. All these beings are suffering. So really out of this heartfelt motivation, once you read these pages a couple of times in your practice, and I'd ask, please start doing this practice if you can. This is one of the attachments from the course. Meditation 1, Shakyamuni Buddha practice with single pointed concentration in the Refuge Prayer. And I believe it's page 92. This is your exercise for the week, please. Meditation 1. First, you're going to need to read it over a few times, which takes time. Once you're familiar with it enough, you don't need to read every word, but you want to get that heartfelt feeling. You know, I need to help all these beings, you know, and we're all suffering. What's the best thing I can do? Well, the best thing I can do is take refuge. So this is a focus right now on refuge practice. Refuge practice. I need to take refuge in the Buddha, okay? So what we're going to do is if you look on the right side of the page and you see these verses, Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Buddhaya, Namo Dharmaya, Namo Sanghaya, the essence is to the Guru I go for refuge, to the Buddha I go for refuge, to the Dharma I go for refuge, to the Sangha I go for refuge. These are the mantras we say if you happen to be doing a refuge nundro. Again, a preliminary practice where I want to accumulate 50,000 refuge or 100,000 refuge. You do each of those lines that many times. However, you're going to do it with a certain visualization. In our daily practice, let's do a little bit of this, okay? So you might decide to get a rosary to count on. It's up to you, you don't need it, but it helps you count maybe how many you want to do. What you're going to do is, I'm counting on the Buddha now to protect us from more suffering. Okay, I have to go to the Buddha for refuge. I really want to deepen some refuge so that when I end up with problems, I don't just run off over these temporary fixes. That I really look at the qualities of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and that's where I turn in my mind, which really means my practice, which ultimately means studying and meditating on emptiness more and more. That's what's really going to free you from suffering. But we have to start walking our way into that space. Slowly, we want to get into that space. So what I'm going to do in practice, now I'm going to visualize, I'm going to recite Namo Guru Bhye. And I'm going to imagine from Shakyamuni Buddha, golden light rays. Sorry, first we're going to purify. White light rays, or whatever color represents purification from you. I don't want to get into black and white, it's racist. Whatever light rays represent is coming from his heart, entering your forehead and all the beings seated around you. And it's basically erasing, diminishing, wiping away anything that prevents us from having proper refuge while we recite Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Guru Bhye. Now, if you like, you can recite to the Guru I go for refuge, to the Guru I go for refuge, to the Guru I go for refuge, however many, but keep those light rays coming. Try as best as you can. Then however many you wish to recite, depending on your time. Okay. Now I'd like you to visualize golden light rays coming from the Buddha's heart. And now they're granting you and all the beings surrounding you, all the living beings we tried to visualize, just imagining they're there, they're granting you all the blessings and realizations of Shakyamuni Buddha's holy body, speech, and mind as you recite the same line, Namo Guru Bhye, Namo Guru Bhye. Namo Guru Bhye. And then here, basically, you do as much as you could do. If you're able to do one whole rosary for each one would be great, okay? And then feel that you've received these blessings, you've purified something, okay? And then there's a dedication here at the bottom of page 95. Okay, great. And so what you could do is then take, and then if you'd like, go on to any of your other practices that you'd like to do. But the other thing is when you're doing the visualization, okay, slowly we want to really focus the concentration. So I'm not scattered while I'm counting mantras. We're not counting mantras when we're watching TV, okay? I am focused on those light rays coming from the Buddha's heart, whichever color I'm visualizing, entering me and all living beings, purifying us, granting us the blessings and realizations just at this first level of practice. When I finish, I can add on any other practices I want to do. And then ultimately, I want to imagine the Buddha in the space in front, inseparable from my teacher, from my guru, slowly dissolves from the edges into the center, into a golden drop of light, and it dissolves along with the beautiful jeweled throne, the snow lions, into that center drop, and that drop comes and melts into our forehead. And again, feel all those blessings of Shakyamuni Buddha's holy body, holy speech, and holy mind. And then you can dedicate the merit with whatever dedication prayers that you'd like. And here it says, at the bottom of page 95, at the end of this practice, may I myself quickly become an awakened one, becoming exactly what is needed to benefit all. And then there's another, whatever form Shakyamuni Buddha takes in my life to teach me, may I always receive those teachings unobstructedly and be able to put them into practice exactly in the manner in which they were intended. So I'd love you to just start just with that practice. Just keep it simple, or feel free to add on. Feel free to add on other practices that you want to do. Any questions about that for now? We're just starting to walk in there. Again, one sort of outline that you can do, building your practice around it. Okay, let me take a few questions. I know from Leah, people say a lot of times to me, my practice is all over the place. How do I bring it together? Again, by the end of our 6 sessions, okay, you should have, and we're going to keep doing these practices each time, but the more you can also do, it's going to help you start orienting you. You get familiar, you get into a habit. You sit in your space and all of a sudden you go, oh, and you sit in your space and suddenly all the living beings appear around you. Shakyamuni Buddha's in front of you. It starts happening like that as soon as you sit down. You may have, again, reminders on your altar of pictures of different teachers, Buddhas. That's fine, because that reminds you, again, reminds you, something that uplifts the mind, okay? So what I would say is slowly over the course of these 6 weeks, hopefully it will pull together, and then I'll be able to incorporate other practices you're also doing, each of you, that will fit in. Where would I fit this in? How does this, hopefully it will fit together usually it fits together as we go on. So the other thing I will mention, let's be skillful with our practice. People are getting busier because the US is opening up, if you live in the US. Our COVID numbers have diminished, fortunately. It's not like that in the rest of the world. But as a result, people are getting out there, more occasions, more events, more things that you're engaged in. So let's be skillful with the practice. Can you find a way to find the value in the practice? Why? Because it's an incredible centering tool for you. Many of you have already said that to me. You see how it uplifts your mind, keeps your mind balanced and stable, okay? So when we look at our day and you've got 24 hours of your day, you know, the more you can put into that practice, if you can get your practice and even an hour of time right now, if you think you can do that, can you squeeze that out by eliminating, and you have to get honest about the wasteful aspects of some things you're doing every day. What are the wasteful areas? Can you just borrow 15 minutes from that activity that you know is just a time waster and shift it into your practice? That's something that you yourself are going to have to do. Okay. But the thing is, then you have a little bit more space to do the practice the way you like. And I know for me, there are times I'm rushing my practice, squeezing it in. Sometimes I have to do that, but it's never great until the days when I sit down and go, okay, great. Now I have some time. And I just know I can roll it out the way I like. And when I get up from that practice, I feel like I rolled it out the way I like. My mind is better supported. In the beginning, though, initially, we don't have that taste yet. So slowly, you'll develop that slowly. And I know it's distracting. There's so many other enviable, enticable things we want to do out there. So the only thing I'd say is try your best. Try your best without guilt, please, without beating yourself up. I didn't do much today. Oh, I'm horrible. No, I just didn't do much today. Couldn't get to it, right? So I have this on the side. Some of you know I'm making satsas. So I'm making these Buddha images. It's very time consuming. And I've had this as a practice from Lama Zopa Rinpoche. But right now I'm in the midst of a house clean out and many other things right now. And because things have opened up, I've got people coming to stay and I have different things, and it's all good stuff. It's all wonderful things. And yet at times I just realize some days I can't do the tsatsa session. I can't. And then other days I notice, you know what, I can't do the session because when I do it, I like to do 2 to 3 hours because there's a whole setup for it and I'm in there and I kind of motor through 2 to 3 hours. And then yesterday I kind of went down there into the laundry room and I said, you know what? I have an hour. I'm going to do an hour. Good enough. And that's all I could manage, an hour. It was great. Perfect. It worked out. And, you know, if I don't end up finishing them here, I'll finish them somewhere else. If I don't, you know, I have a really good setup here. So I was like, I could have finished them, but there's too many other things going on. So be reasonable with yourself. That's part of the practice. Please be reasonable with yourself. We making sense? Everything okay? Okay. So again, how to condense is when we get to the 7-limb prayer, that's a really important prayer that's very valuable, even in its shortest version, to recite once a day. So there's certain prayers I'll say, if you can't do a refuge thing of Namaguru Be Namaguru, you know, if you're not interested in doing that, recite that 4-line refuge prayer 3 times in the morning, 3 times at night. We can certainly do that. You know, just quickly visualize the Buddha there. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened, to the Buddha, the Dharma, you know, get that prayer, learn that prayer like that. That we can certainly do, right? 7-limb prayer. Okay, and these prayers, when we get to the 7 limbs, it's going to show you again What are the more essential parts that I have to do? If you've read that Refuge Motivation a couple of times, some days you're going to sit down, you're not going to have time to read it all, but you have the essence of it. Scan through it, pick out a couple lines and go, I could easily die today. So I really want to do my practice with some focus. Okay, you don't need to read the 2 pages. See, so be skillful like that. But the 7 limb prayer, when we get to that, probably next week, that's something really important to do. And I'm going to explain the prayer as well. Some of you are already doing it. Okay, then, okay, let's see what else I wanted to go through. Okay, I also want to give you, just roughly, recommendations if you want to do the readings. Okay, this week, if you'd like, the readings attached to this class. Lama Zopa Rinpoche on establishing a daily practice. Okay, wait, I think this is a separate, okay, but no, this may be a separate document, but here in your readings, I believe it's advice for daily practice should be part of your readings. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Advice for daily practice by Lama Zopa Rinpoche. If you could read that this week, really helpful. The second thing I'd like you to read from the Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun, which is also part of our materials, Morning Prayers, pages 37 to 41. I'm just going to have a quick look in your, okay. Discovering Buddhism for this course, if you go to page, let me see if I can do this, 37. Okay, here's the opening prayers where the Refuge and Bodhichitta is the opening prayers. Okay, but that's through listening to the Dharma. Okay, that I think that's just what you say before. That's not for your practice. That's if there's a teaching. Okay, so let me just see if I can find. Okay, here we go. Here's the readings. Okay, advice for daily practice, page 5, and then there's also setting up an altar, page 7. Can be very, very helpful. And then going to pages, I'm just going to find the morning prayers. So these are just the readings. Just want to try to direct you. Hang on one second. Some really nice readings in here. Okay. Really nice. Okay, hang on one second. Okay, I thought it had the, let me just see. Okay, no, that's the opening prayers, sorry. Okay. Come back to you guys. Here we go. So in those course materials, the reading I mentioned is there to please. The Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun, is that part? I can't seem to find that. That's what I was looking for, where it has morning prayers, pages 37 to 41.
Venerable Amy, it's not posted, but I can email the SPC and get that posted in the materials link.
Okay, that would be great because we're going to need that for this course. Thank you. I thought that was part of those materials. So thank you so much. That would be really helpful. For now, look for advice for daily practice, Lama Zopa Rinpoche, which is in those readings. And you can also, there's some fantastic readings that we're going to slowly unpack of different ways to set up the practice, ways we're thinking about it, and things like that. Okay. So that's just recommended for next week. Now, here's something else I want to mention. So we're going to next week go into the 7 limb practice. We're going to talk about the mandala offering. You can certainly look at those preliminary prayers that are part of those materials. They're usually the prayers we use before there's a teaching. So the refuge one, the third line is slightly different. So instead of saying by listening to the teachings, you say by practicing giving and other perfections. It's just slightly different. So you can make that adjustment in your text, but it's a great, that 4-line prayer is great. And then we're going to talk about why do we offer the mandala offering? Why do we do the 7 limbs? I'm going to talk about all that. And how do we visualize the hand mudra for the prostrations? For the mandala offerings. I'm going to talk about that. So these are all different components you don't need to do, but I'm just going to show you. And if you ever end up at a retreat, like Light of the Path retreat, that hopefully will be scheduled next year. It usually takes place in North Carolina, outside Asheville, North Carolina. Some of you may have already attended one. We've had to postpone a few years because of COVID. Lama Zopa Rinpoche's there, and it's a wonderful retreat that goes on for a month. It's a group retreat. You can participate for one day if that's all the time you have, or one weekend, or 1 week. It's totally worth doing. But what happens is you'll hear all these prayers happening, and you'll have more understanding about how to create this really authentic, expanded practice. And then when you don't have time, you just do a shorter version of it. And I'll tell you which parts of it are more essential, or at least how to think more quickly in it so that you still take the essence. Okay, so here's another thing that we're going to talk about in the future is making requests. That part of the Guru Yoga practice is there's verse, or at least some verses of requests to the Guru, to the Buddha, the image in front of you, inseparable from the Guru. We don't understand the nature of requests. So the only reason I teach is because centers request me to teach. I don't just say, well, I think I'll give a teaching for Thupten Norbaling. Like that. Only because I'm requested. That's our protocol. Like that. So Buddhas come and help you. Teachers come and teach. And they teach on certain subjects because they've been requested. Whatever you would like to unfold in your practice, ask for it in your practice. You can ask for it formally by reciting some of the verses with really heartfelt energy. And you can add any of your own personal requests you'd like to put in. You know, I really want to have a great practice. I want to be able to create the causes to do retreat and to feel the strength to do retreat on my own in the future. I'd really like to help the center. I'd like to have more Dharma in my life. Whatever it is, if you have somebody who's really ill, ask for prayers for them. Ask for their healing. Whatever it is you need, but not obviously something mundane that you want your baseball team to win. Come on, right? But you want to ask for something that's going to help the practice to unfold for you. Those requests are really, really important. Like that. So I even have a list. And when I do Tara praises every day, I have a whole list for Tara. I discuss with Tara. Please help clear the obstacles for this. You want to bring that merit field, because right now, our merit field is Shakyamuni Buddha, who is inseparable from your guru, inseparable from your teacher. And what I mean by merit field is, it's a field in front of which you create positive energy, merit. That helps you on the path. That helps the path and your practice to unfold. That. So you want to make them real for you, and they're there. When I was at Laudo, I do a lot of retreat up at this remote retreat center near Mount Everest in Nepal. I'm actually leading a pilgrimage. Hopefully next year we'll be able to go. And you're welcome to join. We have some spaces left. When I'm there, there's only like 4 people that live on that side of the mountain. It's very remote, it's very high, and you're alone. And you need to have your practice sorted because they're not going to there's nobody there leading practices. And people say to me, you know, don't you get lonely? Even people that have been there up there, and they say, you're going to stay 3 or 4 months? Don't you get lonely up here? You know, and I have my whole merit field. So each of the Guru Yogas has a more elaborate merit field. The Lama Chopa, very elaborate. Many, many Buddhas. I put all my teachers there. I visualize them. I feel like they're there. There's a spot where I breathe life into that visualization. They kind of come alive just in my imagination, but you can play with it. Meaning I'm up there in a very cold place, very high up, and my mind is sinking and I'm alone. And sometimes I was lonely. Yeah. Sometimes I get depressed. It was hard being alone like that for a few months doing these practices, right? So occasionally I was doing a lot of water bowls, making these offerings outside, and occasionally in my merit field, my lamas are there which includes His Holiness the Dalai Lama, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. So I kind of tried to visualize them there as best as I could. And sometimes I'd have His Holiness lean over to Lama Zopa in my merit field and say, she makes really good water bowl offerings. Okay, so you want to, as much as you can, bring it alive. Why not? Because I really feel like they are there. And when I need help, I call on that energy. It's not like a Buddha appears in front of me. Okay, but sometimes the energy shifts. So there's beings there. We're just too dense and don't have pure enough karma to see them directly. But more and more on this path, I feel like they are there and they help. And they tend to go to those that are requesting and asking a little bit more specifically, but they're there to help all of us. Okay, I'm going to stop there. And thank you so much, Mary. Again, the course materials, there's the link. Is that the link to the Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun? Let me just see.
That's the link to the Dropbox on the website that has the Discovering Buddhism module in it. And that's where I'll get the SPC to post the Wish Fulfilling Golden Sun.
Okay, thank you so much. So save those links, materials. Right now, there's a lot of good materials on there, especially the reading and the Shakyamuni Buddha practice that I'd like you to do. So just try this week to do that as best as you can. Again, the more you do it, the more familiar it's going to become, the more it's going to feel like some sort of practice to you. And you can build in some other practices right now. And then we'll get to some of the other comments you had in the future sessions. Any other last questions for now? Okay, and we have a dog meditating with us, I think. It's good. I mean, with animals, it's the best it gets is when they sit and they listen. You know, they can't do much else. I used to have my cats used to kind of meditate with me, but at their level, it's best, you know, some imprint, we hope, for the future. So what I'd like to do in closing is we're going to dedicate the merit. And for now, I don't have I'm going to bring up these other dedication prayers right now because I don't have all the, there's a lot of dedication prayers. I couldn't seem to find the exact ones I wanted from this. We'll find it next week. These are some dedications Rinpoche's recommended for the COVID time, and I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to do a few of these dedications. So it's very important, the bookends. I had motivation in the beginning. I have dedication in the end. I've got these bookends. When I dedicate the merit, it's like I'm investing whatever positive energy we've created. I'm going to invest it rather than have it dry up on its own. I'm taking that drop of water and putting it in the ocean where it's part of this vast pool, as opposed to on its own, it more quickly evaporates. Also, experiences of negative mind and anger can destroy that virtue or that merit. So the dedication prevents that. Let's do some of these dedication prayers. Can you see the prayers?
Yes, Venerable.
Wonderful. This one we're going to chant the first verse. O Janju Senjo Rinpoche, Ma Ke Panam Ge Gyurchig, Ke Panyam Pa Me Pa Yi, Gone Gondu Pelwar Sho. For the sick, however many sick sentient beings there are, may they quickly be freed from all sicknesses. May all the sicknesses without exception of transmigratory beings never occur again. I particularly would like to dedicate to a man in Brazil right now named Pythagoras. And he is the brother of a dear friend of mine, Venerable Namdrol, who runs our center in Rio. She's a nun and he is very ill in the hospital in ICU with COVID. So really praying for his swift, full recovery. I'd also like to dedicate to all those who have recently died in the last 49 days, especially Rich Cairns, who is the father of one of my dear neighbors who just passed away 2 days ago and suddenly was really not sick and then got cancer and died a month later. So I'd like to dedicate to his well-being, for him to immediately take a good rebirth to be a benefit to all, to get enlightened, to be a benefit to all living beings, like all those who have passed away in the last 49 days. In all my lives, never separated from perfect gurus, may I enjoy the magnificent Dharma by completing the qualities of the grounds and paths. May I quickly attain the state of Vajradhara. So regarding dedication prayers, the practices have a lot of dedication prayers. You can do whichever ones you like, whatever you have time for. And then the most important one Rinpoche says is dedicating with emptiness, which is this prayer right here, to seal the merits with emptiness. Whatever understanding you have about emptiness, due to all the past, present, and future merits collected by me, the numberless Buddhas, the numberless sentient beings, which are completely empty of existing from their own side, may I, who am completely empty of existing from my own side, achieve the state of full enlightenment, which is completely empty of existing from its own side, and lead all sentient beings who are completely empty of existing from their own side to that state which is completely empty of existing from its own side, by myself alone, who am completely empty of existing from my own side. This prayer at the bottom is a condensed King of Prayers, which is a long dedication prayer. I fully dedicate all these virtues to be able to train just like the hero Manjushri, who knows reality, and just like Samantabhadra as well, also called the prayer of Samantabhadra. That's a dedication, the longer one, when somebody dies, when someone's ill, one of the greatest dedications you can do. And lastly, we are going to do the long life prayer for His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. To the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you who uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjunath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplish magnificent prayers honoring the three sublime ones, Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. So again, those dedication prayers, please add those, especially for long lives of His Holiness and Lama Zopa, if you feel. Very important to do that dedication, add some dedication prayers up to the practice I just gave you. So you can find those in some of the practices, and please be well this week and try your best, okay? Thank you so much. Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Anna, for hosting. Thank you, Tuptum Norbaling. So appreciate, and thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.